everybody. In this video you will be learning about conditional statements in C#. The agenda of my video will be what are conditional statements, why do we use conditional statements, different conditional statements, there are if statements, else if statements and else statements. So let's get straight into it. First I'm going to talk about what are conditional statements. You can use conditions to perform different actions for different decisions. C# has the following conditional statements: the if statement, the else if statement, and the else statement. Next, I'm going to talk about why do we use conditional statements. Basically, we use conditional statements to check a condition and execute a set of code if the condition is true. Okay, now let's start talking about the if statement. Basically, we use the if statement to specify a block of C# code to be executed if the condition is true. For example, here I'm declaring an integer number and assigning that the value of 1. After that, I'm using an if statement to check if the value of number is 1. So I'm saying if and starting a bracket number equal to 1, closing the bracket and starting a curly brace, and this inside the curly brace is what you have to execute if the if condition is true. Okay, so if this condition is true, I'm writing on the console that the answer was 1. And then I'm just closing up the curly brace. And note that the if statement is in lowercase letters. Uppercase letters will give an error. Next, I'm going to talk about the else if statement. We use the else if statement to specify a new block of code to be executed if the if condition is false. So let's understand this with an example. Here I'm declaring an integer number and assigning that the value of 1. After that, I'm using an if statement to check if the value of number is 1. And if that is true, then I'm writing on the console that the answer was 1. Then I'm adding an else if statement to check if the number is 2. The value of the variable number is 2. And if that is true, I'm writing on the console the answer was 2. So how I do this is I'm using the else if keyword. And then I'm starting a bracket and then I'm typing in number equality operator 2 and closing off the bracket and then starting curly bracket. So again, just like for the if statement, the code inside the curly brackets will be executed if the else if condition is true. So if this condition is true, then I'm writing on the console that the answer was 2. So we use the else if statement when we have multiple conditions to be checked, and the comparison operators can be applied to the if and else if statements while we are checking a condition. Now next I'm going to talk about the else statement. In C# we use the else statement to specify a block of code to be executed if both the if and else if conditions are false. Let's understand this with an example. Here I'm declaring an integer number and assigning that the value of 1. After that I'm using an if statement to check if the value of number is 1, and if that is true, I'm writing on the console that the answer was 1. Then I'm using an else if statement to check if the value of number is 2. And if that is true, I'm writing on the console the answer was 2. After that, I'm using an else statement. So in the else condition, you may have noticed that like for the if and the else if statements, there is no curly bracket inside which you can specify a condition. So this has proven that the else statement, the else condition will only get executed if both the if and else if statements are false. So like I was saying, then I'm starting up a curly bracket, and again the code inside this curly bracket will be executed if the if condition is true. Okay, and if the if condition is true, then I'm writing on the console the answer is not 1 or 2. So note that if your condition is only of one line, then you don't need this curly bracket. So in these examples of if, else if and else statements, I don't really require these curly brackets. I can just remove them and the result is going to be all the same. Now, let's do the Visual Studio demo. So, I'm just going to fire up Visual Studio. So, here I fired up Visual Studio and I created a console application. What I'll do first is I'm going to show you an example of using the if statement. So, first I'm going to declare an integer variable, number, and assign this the value of 1. Then I'm going to use an if statement to check if the value of number is 1. And if this is true, we'll write on the console that if statement executed. Let's check what's the output by running our program. So I'm just going to run our program. So you can see that the output of the console is that if statement executed. Now I'm going to show you that we can even check multiple conditions by using an if statement itself. So instead of checking if number's value is 1, I'm going to check if number is greater than 0 and number is less than 10. Okay, so let's check what's the output again by running our program. So I'm just going to run our program. So you can see that the output on the console is that if statement executed. So in an if statement, you can check conditions by using all the other comparison operators. In our example, we have only used the less than, the greater than, and equality operator. Okay, so now let's take a look at the else if statement. So to teach you about the else if statement, I will first make a change in this if statement. So I'm going to say number is greater than 5. Okay. And I'm going to add in an else if statement. So I'm going to say else if number is less than 5, then I'm going to write on the console that else if statement executed. Okay. Now let's check what's the output by running our program. So I'm just going to run our program. So you can see that the output on the console is that else if statement executed. Okay, so now here we have a spelling error that is in the word statement. So I'm just going to correct that spelling error. So now I'm going to explain this code to you. So first we're declaring an integer, number, and then we're using an if statement to check if number is greater than 5. So the compiler will check this in sequential order. So that it will first start checking from the if statement. So this statement is false because the number variable is not greater than 5, it is less than 5. So in here this console.writeLine method will never be executed. And now we'll go to the next else if statement if there are any, and if there is no else if or else statement, then it will just terminate. Okay, so the control will now go to the else if statement and it will check this statement. So this statement or this condition is true, and because it's true, this console.writeLine method is going to be executed, and that's what you saw the output of the console.elsif statement executed. So now I'm going to show you an example of the else statement. So in order to do that, we have to make a change in the number variable's value. I'm going to set this to 3, and the else if statement, I'm going to check if number is less than, I'm going to say 2. Now I'm going to add in an else statement. So I'm going to say else, and you cannot check a condition in an else statement because, like I've already said, it only executes, the else statement only executes if both the if and Elsif statements are false. So else, we don't need these curly brackets. Yeah. Else, I'm going to write on the console that else statement executed. Okay, now let's check what the output by running our program. So I'm just going to run our program. So you can see that the output on the console is else statement executed. Now let me explain this code to you. First, we are using an if statement to check if number is greater than 5. So this returns false because the value of number is 3. And this console.writeLine method doesn't get executed. Then the control goes over to the Elsif statement. In the Elsif statement, we are checking whether the value of number is less than 2, which is also not true. And this console.writeLine method also will not get executed. Now the control will go to the else statement. And this else statement will get executed because both the Elsif and the else statements are false. So that's why we saw the output on the console as else statement executed. Okay, so now I will want to share some points with you. The first point I want to share with you is that we cannot use an else statement without declaring an if statement. The second point I want to share with you is that we can use an if statement without the need of declaring an else statement. If we want to check multiple conditions, then we can just declare multiple else statements. Now, I hope you're clear about the conditional statements in C#. So that's it for this video, guys. If you like this video, don't forget to like and share this video. Please subscribe to my channel for more. Goodbye till the next video.